listen carefully, because today's topic is not just another headline, not just another trending news clip. This is history in motion. 2025 has been loud, unpredictable, and full of turning points, but there is one political story that stands above everything else. A story that is shaping economies, shifting power, and rewriting the future. And today, I, Zohran Hamdani, am here not to complicate it, but to explain it, clearly, boldly, and fearlessly. Because the truth is this: most people hear the news, very few understand it. Most people get opinions, but almost no one gets perspective. So, in the next few minutes, I'm going to break down 2025's biggest political story in a way you've never heard before. No filters, no confusion, no drama. Just clarity. Just impact. Just the reality you need to know. So sit back, open your mind, and get ready. Because what I'm about to share with you might just change the way you see 2025. In 2025, the biggest truth most people still fail to recognize is that politics today isn't being driven by personalities, speeches, or even elections the way it used to be. What's driving the world right now is a deep and significant realignment of power shifts happening quietly in boardrooms, tech labs, international alliances, and economic networks that no single leader can fully control. When people look at politics, they often get distracted by faces, names, controversies, and statements. They argue over who is right and who is wrong, who is strong and who is weak, who is trending and who is fading. But behind all these surface-level battles lies a much bigger reality. The real power of 2025 is being moved, negotiated, and redistributed by systems, not individuals. This power realignment is happening because the world itself has changed. Economies are interconnected in ways that didn't exist 10 years ago. Technology is advancing faster than political frameworks can keep up with. Innovation has shifted from governments to private companies that influence billions of lives daily. Nations that were once dominant are now dependent on global supply chains controlled by foreign partners. Even public opinion, the collective voice of ordinary people, has become more powerful due to social platforms that can shift markets, force decisions, or collapse reputations within hours. All of this means that leadership today is no longer about a single strong person making decisions at the top. It is about understanding the networks of influence that surround them. When power shifts from individuals to systems, the game changes completely. Leaders who rely only on charisma or authority are losing relevance. Those who understand the deeper web of economic, digital, and social forces are rising. The political story of 2025 is not one of one hero or one villain. It is a story of how countries are adjusting, sometimes painfully, to a new global balance. Alliances are being redefined. Old partnerships are cracking. New ones are forming based on shared technology, resources, or digital infrastructure instead of ideology or history. Even superpowers are no longer guaranteed stability because influence is no longer controlled by borders. It is controlled by the flow of data, resources, capital, and global narratives. This realignment is also visible in how nations compete. Power used to be measured by military strength or land. Now, it is measured by who controls semiconductor production, who dominates artificial intelligence, who leads in digital currencies, who manages critical supply lines, and who can set global standards through platforms or innovation. Countries that saw themselves as unstoppable are facing competition from smaller but more technologically advanced nations. Meanwhile, developing countries with strong digital growth are becoming influential players in global discussions. The map of power is being redrawn not by wars, but by strategy, information, and economic leverage. People often assume politics is slow, but these changes are happening incredibly fast. Leaders who cannot adapt are being replaced or ignored by the systems around them. Governments that cannot understand or manage global economic pressures are collapsing under their own weight. The public, once passive, is now shaping political outcomes through constant digital presence and pressure. Corporations, once secondary actors, now hold negotiation power equal to some nations. In simple words, the world is no longer top-down, it is multi-centered, fluid, and interconnected. So when we say that 2025's political shift is driven by a realignment of power rather than personalities, it means the era of single-figure dominance is fading. The force shaping our world today is larger, deeper, and more complex. And understanding this shift is the key to understanding every major political story of this year. In 2025, the speed of global economic movement has become faster than anything governments were ever designed to handle. For decades, political systems believed they controlled the rhythm of national and international progress. But now, economies are shifting independently, reacting to technology, global markets, digital platforms, and public sentiment at a pace that makes traditional governance look slow, outdated, and almost reactive instead of proactive. What used to take months now happens in minutes. What once needed committees, policies, and debate now happens automatically through algorithms, financial flows, and technological ecosystems that operate without waiting for approval. The biggest challenge of 2025 is that governments still function with structures built for a world that moved slowly. Legislation takes time. Decision-making takes time. Negotiations take time. But markets don't wait. Technology doesn't pause. The global economy doesn't slow down because a parliament is arguing or a ministry is unprepared. When a new technology disrupts an industry, millions of dollars shift instantly. When a global issue spikes online, investor behavior changes immediately. When a supply chain breaks in one country, factories in 10 other countries feel the shock in real time. The economic environment of 2025 is alive, constantly changing, and influenced by countless data points every second. As a result, governments are no longer in full control, they are often trying to catch up. Economic power has moved toward private companies, multinational networks, and digital platforms that operate at the speed of code, not at the speed of paperwork. A tech company can introduce a new AI model and instantly change job markets across continents. A single social media trend can influence consumer spending faster than a government policy. Digital currencies and online payment systems can shift the financial direction of entire populations without asking permission from any central authority. The world is witnessing a turning point where economic influence is decentralized and increasingly driven by innovation rather than institutions. This is why economies are reacting faster than governments can adapt, because the sources of economic momentum no longer originate from political centers. They originate from technology hubs, global trade networks, market psychology, and the ever-changing behaviors of billions of connected people. Political leaders still talk about long-term planning, but markets move in seconds. Technology evolves overnight, and global competition forces countries to move quickly or risk falling behind. By the time a government finishes debating a strategy, the landscape may already have shifted. In 2025, this mismatch creates both opportunity and chaos. Opportunity, because nations that adapt quickly can rise faster than ever before. Small countries with strong digital infrastructure can become global economic players in a few years, not decades. Entrepreneurs can build billion-dollar companies without needing political influence. Innovation can spread globally without being slowed down by national borders. But there is chaos too, because those who cannot keep up are left behind. Industries collapse if they fail to modernize. Workers lose jobs if systems don't evolve with technology. Entire sectors become irrelevant if governments don't understand how the new economy works. This is the real political story behind every economic headline of 2025. It is not just inflation, trade deals, growth rates, or stock market movements. It is the growing gap between how fast the world is changing and how slowly traditional systems are responding. Countries successful in 2025 are not the ones with the strongest speeches or the oldest institutions. They are the ones that can keep pace with the rhythm of the global economy, a rhythm that is fast, unpredictable, and relentless. Understanding this shift is essential to understanding the world today. Because in 2025, the power does not belong to those who control the system. It belongs to those who can adapt to the speed at which the system is transforming. In 2025, one of the most underestimated forces shaping global politics is the rise of public influence, stronger, louder, and far more impactful than traditional political structures ever expected. For For decades, governments, institutions, and power centers believed they were the ones setting the direction of societies. They believed authority flowed from the top down. But today, the power equation has flipped. The public, connected through social platforms, digital communities, and global awareness, has become a force that no political system can ignore, silence, or fully control. In the past, public opinion was a reaction. In 2025, it is the trigger. The difference now is the scale and speed at which public influence moves. A single video, a trending conversation, a viral demand, these can shift political priorities faster than any formal process. Leaders who once relied on slow, structured communication channels now face a global audience that evaluates, judges, responds, and pressures them instantly. In this environment, public influence often lands before a government can even draft its first statement. It is not just louder, it is faster, decentralized, and emotionally powerful. Traditional structures, with their committees and regulations, cannot keep up with millions of voices speaking at once. This shift is not accidental, it was built by technology. The internet gave everyone a voice. Social media gave that voice a platform. Smartphones gave it immediacy, and global connectivity gave it reach. When billions of people have the ability to speak, share, unite, and act, the balance of power starts to tilt. The public is no longer just an audience, it is an active participant in political outcomes. And because public sentiment is unpredictable, dynamic, and influenced by countless factors, governments can no longer plan the way they used to. They must react to public movements they did not create and cannot control. Another major factor is that people are more informed than ever before. They see world events in real time. They compare their country's progress with others instantly. They can expose inconsistencies, challenge narratives, and demand transparency. In the past, leaders could manage information flow. Today, information manages them. When the public sees something they reject, they speak collectively. When they agree on something, they amplify it globally. Public influence is not restricted by borders, and that makes it even more powerful. A crisis in one country can spark movements in another. An injustice caught on camera can trigger international pressure. The world is tuned into itself. This new reality has reshaped how political structures operate. Governments that once felt secure now find themselves accountable to massive digital communities. Policies are questioned before they are even implemented. Statements are analyzed word by word. Leaders must navigate not just national politics, but global public sentiment. And this sentiment has become a political force without needing formal authority. It doesn't sit in parliament, it doesn't vote directly on legislation, but it influences everything from policy decisions to diplomatic relations to economic behavior. Public influence also brings a new kind of unpredictability. Traditional systems rely on procedures, but public movements rely on emotion, timing, and urgency. They rise suddenly and demand immediate action. This pressure can cause political systems to bend, shift, or accelerate beyond their usual pace. It can force resignations, change laws, or spark elections. It can also protect individuals, elevate leaders, or expose hidden realities. The public today is not passive, it is powerful. In 2025, the most important truth is this: political structures still have authority, but the public now has influence. And influence, in a connected world, can be stronger than authority. People can create narratives, enforce accountability, and shape political outcomes without holding a single official position. Understanding this dynamic is essential, because the political landscape of 2025 is no longer defined by institutions alone. It is defined by the collective voice of the people who now stand at the center of global change. In 2025, technology has become the silent engine driving political outcomes, often more powerfully than policies, speeches, or traditional institutions. What most people don't fully realize is that political influence is no longer dependent on who sits in office. It is shaped by the tools, platforms, and digital systems that define modern life. Technology has woven itself into every aspect of society, from communication to finance to governance, and because of that, it has become the real architect of political direction. When you look closely at any major global event today, you find that technology isn't in the background, it is at the center. The most dramatic change comes from how information travels. In the past, politicians shaped narratives through controlled communication. Today, social platforms, digital media, and AI-driven algorithms decide what becomes visible, what becomes viral, and what becomes forgotten. A government can craft a policy, but a trending video can destroy it. A parliament can pass a law, but an online movement can challenge its legitimacy within minutes. Technology has given billions of people a voice, but more importantly, it has given those voices the power to influence outcomes instantly. This means that leaders no longer control the flow of information. The flow controls them. Beyond communication, technology is reshaping power through data. Every decision people make, from what they search to what they buy, creates data trails. That data is analyzed, processed, and used to predict behaviors, influence decisions, and guide policies. Tech companies hold more information about populations than many governments. Algorithms know what citizens care about, fear, desire, and reject. This gives technology an extraordinary level of influence over political direction. Decisions are no longer made purely through debate. They are guided by digital patterns that reveal how society is moving. Leaders who understand data become powerful. Leaders who ignore it fall behind. Artificial intelligence is accelerating this shift even further. AI systems can analyze millions of variables faster than any human institution. They can shape public opinion by personalizing content, detect political risks before they surface, and influence markets with precision. AI-driven automation is transforming industries, changing jobs, and creating economic pressure long before governments are prepared to respond. This means technology is not waiting for political approval, it is moving forward, and politics is forced to adapt. Policies that once defined the pace of progress are now trying to catch up with innovations that appear overnight. Another major shift is happening in national security and global power. Countries are no longer competing only through military strength. They are competing through technological dominance. Artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, digital currencies, quantum computing, and control over global networks now determine strategic advantage. A country that leads in AI gains economic and political leverage. A country that controls key technologies influences global standards. And a country that falls behind risks losing not just economic growth, but international relevance. Technology has become the new battlefield, and innovation has become the new weapon. Even the way governments function internally is being transformed. Digital governance, automated systems, and real-time analytics are replacing slow bureaucratic processes, but the transition is uneven. Some governments adapt quickly and grow stronger. Others struggle and lose legitimacy. Technology demands agility, but political structures often resist change. This creates a growing gap between what people expect and what governments can deliver. When citizens experience speed and efficiency in digital platforms, they demand the same from their leaders. The pressure increases, and political systems must evolve or face public frustration. In 2025, the truth is undeniable. Technology shapes political outcomes more consistently than political plans. It influences minds, markets, institutions, and international relations with a force that no policy can fully match. While leaders still matter, technology often determines whether their decisions succeed or fail. To understand politics today, you must understand the systems running behind it. Because in this era, the tools of progress have become the real power, and those who control technology ultimately shape the world. In 2025, leadership is no longer about long speeches, complicated strategies, or showcasing intellectual superiority. It is about clarity, pure, sharp, and fearless clarity. The world has become too fast, too unpredictable, and too crowded with information for leaders to hide behind complexity. People today don't want leaders who talk in circles. They want leaders who cut through the noise and say exactly what needs to be said. Clarity has become the strongest form of power, because in a time when everyone is confused, the person who can explain reality simply becomes the person others follow. This shift didn't happen overnight. It happened because the world has changed in ways that make complexity a weakness instead of a strength. Technology moves at a pace impossible for traditional systems to track. Economies react in seconds. News spreads in milliseconds. Public sentiment shifts without warning. In such a world, leaders who rely on old methods, committee meetings, long reports, layered bureaucracy are always late, always slow, always unprepared. Their decisions float in a sea of confusion. Clarity is the only anchor left. People today live in a world overloaded with information. Every second, they receive updates, opinions, predictions, warnings, and noise from every direction. This overload creates fatigue. It becomes harder to know what is true, what matters, and what should be ignored. This is exactly where strong leadership stands out. A leader who can take a complicated issue and explain it in a way that everyone can understand instantly becomes valuable. People follow clarity because it gives them direction. It removes doubt. It makes decisions easier. In 2025, clarity is not just communication, it is leadership. And clarity does not mean simplicity of thought. It means simplicity of expression. It is the ability to understand something deeply and express it plainly. A leader who provides clarity is not someone who lacks depth. They are someone who has mastered it. Complexity often hides insecurity or confusion. Clarity, on the other hand, reflects confidence and understanding. When a leader speaks with clarity, it shows they truly know what they are talking about. And when people sense that certainty, they trust. Another reason clarity is essential today is the rise of public influence. People no longer wait for government statements. They respond instantly based on what they see, feel, and believe. If leaders cannot communicate clearly, the public fills the gap with speculation. Confusion becomes a space for misinformation to grow. Clarity is the only way to stay ahead of narratives instead of being destroyed by them. A leader who speaks with precision prevents misunderstandings before they begin. Clarity also creates stability. In uncertain times, societies look for someone who can provide direction without hesitation. A leader who hesitates loses authority. A leader who speaks vaguely loses trust. But a leader who provides clear answers, even difficult ones, creates confidence. People don't need perfection from their leaders. They need direction. They need someone who tells them what is happening, what it means, and what comes next. The world respects leaders who face reality as it is, not as they wish it to be. In 2025, leadership isn't about having the loudest voice. It's about having the clearest one. It's about making decisions that cut through confusion and communicating them in a way that everyone can follow. Complexity used to impress people, now it exhausts them. Clarity inspires them. The leaders who succeed today are not the ones who hide behind fancy words or long explanations. They are the ones who deliver truth directly, boldly, and simply. Because in an era of overwhelming complexity, clarity has become the ultimate form of strength. As we come to the end of this journey, remember one thing: 2025 is not just a year of change, it is a year of awakening. The world is shifting, power is realigning, technology is rewriting rules, economies are moving faster than governments, and the voice of the people is louder than any institution. Everything we have discussed today is part of a much bigger truth. The future belongs to those who understand the present. You now know that political outcomes aren't being shaped by personalities anymore, they are being shaped by the systems behind them. You understand that global economies move without waiting for permission. You see clearly how public influence has become a force that no government can resist. You recognize that technology is the real architect of political direction. And you realize that leadership today demands clarity, courage, and simplicity. The world doesn't need more confusion, it needs understanding, it needs perspective, it needs individuals who can look beyond headlines and see the deeper patterns shaping our future. And if you've listened closely today, you are now one of those individuals. So don't walk away from this speech thinking you've just heard information. Walk away knowing you've gained vision. Walk away knowing you now see 2025 differently with awareness, intelligence, and purpose. Because the people who understand the world are the ones who ultimately shape it. And remember this final message: the story of 2025 is still being written. By governments, by systems, by technology, by public influence, and most importantly, by people like you who choose to think, question, and lead. Thank you for listening, thank you for understanding, and thank you for being a part of the future that is unfolding right now. Stay aware, stay clear, stay bold, and never stop learning. The world is changing, and you are ready for it.